Me to start, Joey?
You're all good?
Good. Okay. So we're just going to set the context. A little bit of a reminder from part one. Since the emergence of jazz in the late 19th century, Jews have helped shape the art form as musicians, band leaders, songwriters, promoters, record label managers, and more. Working alongside African Americans, but often with fewer barriers to success, Jews helped jazz gain recognition as a uniquely American art form, symbolic of the melting pot's potential and a pluralistic society. At the same time that Jews helped establish jazz as America's art form, they also used it to shape the contours of American Jewish identity. Elements of jazz infiltrated some of America's earliest secular Jewish music, formed the basis of numerous sacred works, and continue to influence the soundtrack of American Jewish life. As such, jazz has been an important site in which Jews have helped define what it means to be American as well as Jewish. So jazz has been an important platform through which Jews have helped share the pluralistic nature of American society, as well as one that has shaped understandings of American Jewish identity. Jews have played many different roles in the development of jazz, from composers to club owners. It's a little bit of repetition from what I just read. Though Jews have been involved in jazz through virtually all phases of its development, they have only used it to express Jewishness in a relatively small number of circumstances. Jazz has acted as a conduit for the development of relationships between the African American and Jewish communities. Because jazz is, at its core, an improvisatory art form, it is very adaptable and particularly well suited to writing one story into it. So we are going to go to the next slide and introduce you to Gershon Kingsley, born Götz Gustav Ksinski in Bochum, Germany. Gershon was a contemporary German-American composer, a pioneer of electronic music, and the Moog synthesizer, which you see in the picture next to the text. A partner in the electronic music duo Perry and Kingsley, founder of the first Moog quartet, and writer of rock-inspired compositions for Jewish religious ceremonies. A little bit more about Gershon Kingsley, who I have met, and of course he has since passed away, but he was a lovely man. Following Kristallnacht, the national pogrom throughout the Third Reich on November 9, 1938, he went with a group of 50 young veterans chosen from the Hamburg Zionist youth camp to begin a new life in Palestine. This group was on one of the last sealed trains from Berlin to Italy, from where they sailed for Haifa. Kingsley's parents tried unsuccessfully to obtain visas for themselves for the United States, and eventually they found their way there only via Cuba and various South American ports. So that's just a little bit about Mr. Kingsley, who is really terrific. You know some of his music because we have sung it at the temple, a beautiful Yehiyu Liratzon. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide and play a song called Vayachulu. You see the translation. Read the translation to yourself while you're listening to the music. And as you're listening, what do you think about the music and how it suits the text? Is this liturgy as you think of the word liturgy? Why isn't it? And how do you think a community of worshipers might respond to this particular piece? And you don't have to respond in any way, or just something to think about, or you can put some thoughts in the chat. Thanks, Joey.
Can you not hear it?
Cannot hear it. No.
All right.
Great. I think that's the end, right? We can go to the
Yes.
next slide. We can go to the next slide. I didn't see anything in the chat. Okay, this is Cantor Charles Davidson, another composer who worked at this time. And he combined jazz and blues with cantorial and chant traditions. And unlike Gershon Kingsley, Davidson was trained as a cantor and taught for decades at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York City. One of Davidson's first attempts at creating a jazz sacred music service, was titled "And David Danced Before the Lord." And a little bit more about Cantor Davidson. His monumental "I Never Saw Another Butterfly," a setting of children's poetry from the Terezin concentration camp in Czechoslovakia, where only 100 of the 15,000 imprisoned children survived, is unquestionably his best known and most celebrated work. It has been performed throughout the world, more than 2,500 performances, to consistent critical acclaim, and is featured on no fewer than 8 commercial recordings. So he's had quite a career and is still alive and kicking, and a very lovely man as well. And if we could play his Lecha Dodi, I hope you enjoy it.
Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה lecha dodi לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה lecha dodi לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מוקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה במחשבה תחילה lecha dodi לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה lecha dodi לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה lecha dodi לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה Oh
Beautiful. We can stay on that screen for a minute. Kingsley and Davidson were part of a broader trend of composers exploring jazz's potential as sacred music. Lalo Schifrin composed his Roman Catholic jazz suite on the Mass texts in 1964. Its recording won the 1965 Grammy for Best Original Jazz Composition. Duke Ellington wrote the first of his 3 concerts of sacred music also in 1965. Later in the 60s, Cantor Raymond Smallover, Charles Davidson's brother-in-law, composed rock services inspired by the music of Bob Dylan. Around the same time that Davidson and Kingsley had composed their services, a teenage composer and rabbi's son named Jonathan Klein was asked to compose a piece for a Boston Jewish Youth Convention, the New England Federation of Temple Youth. So the next piece you're going to hear is by Jonathan Klein. And we can go to the next screen. Yeah, you can just jump to the next one. Okay, so let's hear a little bit of, we're going to hear the Blessing Over the Candles first. Beautiful. So it is a little bit small, but if you can read the musicians who are playing on this album, it's quite a who's who. Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter. That's just kind of amazing. Jonathan Klein actually was. He grew up in Worcester, Mass. His dad was the rabbi at Temple Emmanuel, Rabbi Joseph Klein, there for many years. He actually also went to Brown University, so we have a lot of connections with Jonathan Klein. So we're going to play a little bit of Mi Chamocha for you. Hope you enjoy it. Great. Thanks, Joey. Yeah, that was a little bit of a swingle singer kind of example, right? Not so great for congregational participation, but a really interesting take. So the next sample is the Shema, and you'll hear two different it's one recording, but he's merged a 1992 recording with a 2011 recording, and it happens about a minute 50 in, which I won't be able to indicate. But Joey, is there a way that maybe you can say where the transition happens?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. About 1 minute 50. Okay, let's try this one.
We're about to transition to the other version.
Beautiful. Okay. So some of the questions or things to think about among the different services that we just listened to, did you think any of them worked best? And perhaps why? Or what did you think of the way the music portrayed the text? Did you find it natural and flowing, or was it stilted and awkward, or somewhere in between? And what did you think of the Hero Israel, the Shema that we just heard, in comparison to your experiences with Jewish liturgical music more generally? Do you feel that any of this music has a spiritual quality to it? So I don't know if somebody just wants to unmute and share a thought or two, I'd be happy to just hear what you're all thinking. Anybody have some thoughts about that? Yeah, Jeannie, go ahead.
So this is probably an unpopular thought, but the Shema, there's something, I don't know if I want to feel like dancing to the Shema.
That's fair.
Although it was very nice. It was very nice to listen to, but I don't know that I got the same feeling.
Okay, good. Anybody else? I can't see everybody, so just chime in if you want to say something.
Hi, this is Angel.
Hi, Angel. Thank you.
I think that the blessing over the candles, I felt that more appropriate, just for a more of a meditative. I agree with Julie. The last one, I mean, I don't know if I would feel comfortable bopping around, in a service. So, but I loved it all and actually just purchased it off of iTunes because
that's funny.
It's really cool.
That is great. What did you think about the Gershon Kingsley? Can you think back to the via Hulu that he played? It was the first song we heard. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, it almost had a show tune or even a Broadway vibe to it. To me, so yeah, it was very entertaining.
Yeah, it was. By the way, Gershon Kingsley, you would probably know his composition "Popcorn" that he wrote in the '60s. Dun 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 dun. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not singing it exactly right, but you've heard it quite a bit. Okay, so we're okay to go on, Joey? Nobody's in the waiting room yet?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So let's move on a little bit. While Jews remained active in jazz throughout the 1970s and the 80s, Jewish jazz remained largely the province of the synagogue. Among the few exceptions are drummer Shelly Mann's My Son, the Jazz Drummer from 1962 and vibraphonist Terry Gibbs' 1963 album, Jewish Melodies in Jazz Time. Both albums featured jazz arrangements of Yiddish and Israeli songs. Let's jump to, I think we're going to jump to the next. Yeah, John Zorn. Okay, here we go. He's a contemporary composer and musician of many talents and abilities. He has been one of the most important figures on New York's new music scene for many decades and is the founder of the Tzadik record label, which he started in the early 1990s to support avant-garde music. In 1995, he started a series on that label called Radical Jewish Culture, which he has described as an attempt to take Jewish music beyond klezmer. Zorn has also composed a collection of 613 melodies, note the number, utilizing Jewish modes or scales like Ahava Rabbah and Mishaberach that are used like jazz standards, melodies with a harmonic structure that form the basis for musical improvisation. And you know what Ahava Rabbah is because it's sort of the Jewish musical mode that you're familiar with when you sing something like Yismechu v'malechutecha da 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 da. That's Ahava Rabbah. So you're all familiar with that melody. Ooh, aha. Okay, so let's just play a little bit of this Masada Sipur from Live in Mittelheim. Okay, thanks, Joey. Okay. So, Joey, I think we can stop sharing the screen. And I want to introduce everybody to a very special friend and our special guest today. Live from Israel, it's Matan Klein, who is a well-known jazz flutist. And Matan has been to Providence many times, 4 or 5, Matan. What do you think?
Uh, 4.5 times.
4.5. So I thought this is perfect. I mean, we have a couple of songs of Matan's that we're going to play for you too, because Matan makes his living as a jazz musician, playing a beautiful flute. And we thought maybe you'd like to hear from Matan directly. This is sort of a major treat for us. So, Matan, do you want to start by maybe just giving us a little bio of yourself and how you got into jazz, or how you got into music or flute or anything like that?
I guess, well, long bio, but we'll make it short. I was born and raised in Israel, in Jerusalem. My dad was the dean of Hebrew Union College, where a lot of rabbis and cantors went to school, and I was a little boy running on the campus and listening to Chazanut and listening to Eli Schleifer and listening to a lot of what happened in the sanctuary. I do remember, by the way, some jazz chords on V'ne'emar. Do you remember that? V'ne'emar, da, 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 da. Lot of jazz inside the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And that's, even without knowing, I was exposed to that. Jerusalem was a special place. It's not Tel Aviv, which is our, crazy jazz city, but it did have a few places that jazz was performed. I was very fortunate to have a special teacher starting at 10th grade, and he introduced us to many different styles of jazz. In the Army, I did not serve in a music corps. I was in intelligence, but then I moved and played a little bit for the soldiers. And then I moved to Boston, which is so close to Providence, and went to the Berklee College of Music, like most Israelis that I know did, made that move. And as far as playing jazz in Israel, this place is like a melting pot. It's just like Israeli jazz. I mean, John Zorn is a pretty good example, because he brought in this Mizrahi kind of sound a little bit, and the linkage to the scriptures. In Israel, we have people just like America. People came from everywhere, from all over the place. So this blend, this beautiful, combination of diasporas created a music scene, and the jazz scene is influenced by the music scene. So jazz is pretty much, it's part of what Israel, the heartbeat of Israel.
So, Matan, you have a lot of Brazilian influence in your jazz music, right? And do you feel like that's across the board in many ways of Israeli jazz musicians, or not necessarily?
A lot of, well, you know how the Brazilians invaded the jazz scene in America. That happened in the 60s, the Bossa Nova craze, and everybody went wild with Jobim. We had something similar happen in Israel in the 70s with Mati Kaspi and those type of people. And they brought in the Brazilian beat, the samba and the bossa nova, into the Israeli mainstream. So those were the first Brazilian songs that I was exposed to, Israeli Brazilian with Hebrew lyrics. And of course, when I did discover Brazilian jazz, that was the next move. I mean, it just blew me away completely. I don't know what the percentage of people here who love and cherish and perform Brazilian jazz, but there is definitely a presence. There are a lot of, that's another one of the diasporas that came to live here. There's a Brazilian kibbutz in the south, Boal Chai. They have a huge percussion band, and they were also taken into recordings and different performances with Ali Einstein, with other artists. And I collaborated on this album. The percussionist on my recent release, the percussionist is a Brazilian Jew that came to Israel from Rio de Janeiro, and when he was 15, he was my roommate at Berklee. Joka is his name, and we've been colleagues ever since. And this is what happened. You know, we recorded together.
Matan, I thought maybe they'd like to hear The Long Run first. We have a couple of your songs, and I'm not sure we have. Well, can we play the whole thing? It's a little bit long, but maybe it's beautiful. So, would you like to introduce it and tell us a little bit about the album? Maybe, I don't know. Or
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything to
Happily,
say. Just listen.
The album was created during what we call the third wave of COVID. It's a little more on the optimistic side because we already had the vaccinations. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I had all kinds of personal stuff happening, and a lot of the music is that energy. It's so funny. Every time I play something that comes out of the heart and I'm all fired up and not everything is happy. But since it's the flute, everybody says, "Oh, this is so beautiful. This is so relaxing and soothing." And the music initially was so charged with all kinds of other stuff, but happily, yeah, it came out a little bit soothing. It's just a very honest effort. I know you know me as a player. You know, sometimes I accompany singers, and sometimes I blend into synagogue music, etc. When it's just this naked truth of music, of me playing just flute and composing, you know, these lines. It's 100% me saying what I really want to say, and that's what it is. And The Long Run talks about, it's like a marathon. We're running a marathon, this crazy life, right? And if I don't take a deep breath right now, if it's only going to be, you know, until tomorrow, but I need to take a huge breath, especially, you know, when things like COVID, when people lose their jobs and, you know, people get really sick. You really need to take a huge breath, and we're going to get over this crazy thing. So that's what this music is about.
Beautiful. That's great. Can we play that, Joey? The Long Run? We can't hear anything yet.
I can
Hold
sing
on
it.
1 second. It's because I'm not sharing my sound anymore.
Oh, I see.
Because I'm not sharing the screen.
You need to share the screen. That's okay.
All right, hold on just a moment.
Okay. I just didn't want to take too much time, but it's beautiful. I could listen to that all day. Matan, I have a question for you. And I know that we had talked about this a little bit before, but I'm just curious if you can talk about um, in what ways is Jews' involvement in jazz similar or different from other genres that they might be involved in?
I was thinking about the question a little bit. One of the first gigs I had in New York after moving from Boston. By the way, I just want to say the bass player on that recording is right now as we speak at the Berklee College of Music. His name is Yoni Ben Ari. He studies there, so you should definitely take advantage of that. Incredible guy. Yeah, so I was invited to Passover Seder in Harlem. And all of a sudden, I'm sure you know about those events. Those two groups, the Jewish people and the African American community, all of a sudden we realized how similar, the stories are of leaving slavery. Obviously, ours happened a little while back. And I think that has to do with the involvement of Jewish musicians in jazz in general. I think Gershwin made a pretty serious move, and Benny Goodman for sure. Benny Goodman did a revolution. He introduced African American players in his band in the 30s and fought for their rights. As far as making music together, it made so much more sense. Dave Brubeck had an African American bass player, and when he was told in a very white America to not bring that musician or not even not put a spotlight on him or something like that, and I know the story goes that Dave Brubeck whispers in the guy's ear, please move forward, just stand in the middle of the stage because we are together in this. We're in this together, something of the sort. And I also think about, I'm listening to these types of personalities. Somebody was asking me, I just got off another Zoom call from an Irish person, and he was talking about the Israeli music scene and how young and vibrant and urgent everything is. And I have that crazy feeling where everything here is, it's like this everywhere in the world, but Israel is young and always has to fight for the existence, and also there's something very uncertain in the air sometimes. There used to be very unstable times. I think that type of energy reflects in the music. I think that kind of survival, I'm not exactly sure which word I'm supposed to use, but that type of an energy exists in the Jewish and in the Israeli way of playing jazz, and in the presence of Israelis and Jewish people on the jazz scene in general. Always have to prove ourselves. Always there's always the Jewish mother there, making sure that you practice. Or now I'm a jazz player. I'm completely breaking all the, I'm the bad boy because I'm supposed to play classical. But as far as that type of discipline, and there's always, you're supposed to excel in your class, and you're supposed to always strive for the highest results. I always hear that in the playing of Jewish artists. Michael Brecker, I'm not exactly sure, Philadelphia Jewish boy, but he's absolutely the most incredible tenor player who ever lived. There was John Coltrane too. You see, it's either us, either us or them, kind of a deal. But yeah, don't quote me on that, please. I know you're recording this, but
That's okay.
dangerous stuff.
Don't worry. I think you're safe. There's so many questions to ask. I thought maybe we could play the other piece that you had recommended we play, at least part of it, just so that the Azimuth Hazaka, was that the one?
Hakaza, yeah. Or
Yeah.
Hakaza, the house.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm giving you hints. I'm giving you hints.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Azimuth is a very, it's the intro. So that's like a 1 minute segment. And then once the percussion enters, it's more of an Afro-Cuban vibe. But then you'll hear it. And there's also different things to say about the method of composing. But if you want to play some of it.
Yeah, we'll just play a part of it. When should we stop? Maybe
after my solo.
After your solo. Okay, there it is. Thanks, Joey. Thanks. Good signing there, Matan. Thank you. That was
Thank
amazing.
you. I'm working on it. I'm doing all
That
sign
was
language.
beautiful. And yes, I know everybody here has a love for this genre of music. It's just really stunning. What else is there anything else that you want to tell us about some of when you mentioned that you wrote this during the third wave of COVID in Israel? Had you cut other albums before during COVID?
Yes, I illegally recorded during the first round of COVID. We were not supposed to leave the house. It's almost like a curfew, 500 meters. That was the limit. But I did have a letter from one of my employers saying, that I'm an important thing. I give to the community, and the kids need me, whatever. And I had that letter with me, so I was allowed to drive around. And so I secretly drove, and you're not supposed to meet people. You're not supposed to close to people. But I drove to the pianist's house, and we recorded a duet album. Again, it's 6 pieces, but it was all one take, first take and everything. And the record label, they were happy, and they put it out, and that was cool. Again, a lot of emotional stuff. Those times were not easy on the family. They were not easy on anyone. Economically, everything was collapsing here. So that's all in the mix.
Well, I'm so happy that you continue to create, because it's beautiful. I wondered, I've also had I've had several opportunities to sing with Matan, and it's wow. I mean, it's just amazing. So I wondered
Feeling
if
is mutual.
You're a very thoughtful person and a dear friend. Does anybody have a question for Matan? I wondered. I know some of you are jazz aficionados. Some of you play jazz. Some of you, I don't know. Anybody have anything they'd like to ask? It's getting late in Israel.
Nah.
Do you have any plans on concerts in the Northeast anytime soon?
So far, I've been booked for this summer, the furthest. I haven't flown in 2 years, which is a long time.
Right.
I was supposed to go to Dallas to a music conference, and that was canceled just now in January. But right now we're booked. I'm booked to play in Lithuania, hopefully in Serbia and the UK, which is already coming close. Hopefully next year. I really hope, or maybe this year. Who knows? I'm not sure yet, but I'm hoping for the best. I've been signed with the UK-based label. Is very happy about the UK little tour that we're trying to arrange. So
that's Ubuntu Music that made this
that's
last
the
album.
name.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Oh, I have many CDs of Matan Klein. And I think not so long ago you put out the big Naomi Shemer. Was it a CD, or you were doing a service, Matan, with
It was
other
a CD.
synagogues? Was a CD.
But it happened. It was 10 years ago.
Well, that's amazing.
I know it's not long because time flies like
Yeah, I know.
we don't even notice. But we made a really fun tribute, and I did come full circle because a few weeks ago I had the opportunity to collaborate with her daughter.
Oh.
And I didn't think she knew who I was, and especially with that jazz thing that I did with Naomi Shemer, I was kind of scared because we completely twisted the music, and we made reggae out of Naomi Shemer, and Afro-Cuban music, and disco Naomi Shemer, and bossa nova Naomi Shemer, and African music Naomi Shemer. Everything was a mess. And I thought, oh my goodness, if she meets me, she's gonna just shoot me. But she was very happy, and we have a really good connection. So now I'm looking forward to making more opportunities playing with her and everything. Yeah,
so wonderful, Matan. Oh, that's so great. Well, Anyway, I'm a big
Why-
fan.
Why do
and-
we need to go?
Well, because
Why do we have to?
we're done. We're done at 1:00. Unless there's something else you want to talk about. We can have a few more minutes. I have another appointment coming up soon, but I have a few minutes. Did you want to talk about anything else?
What I wanted to say was that jazz and the reform movement, I think, have a really good way of blending. And there's a lot of my colleagues, and obviously what we used to do with Seeds of Sun, hopefully we'll do it again. But I know that within Chazanut, first of all, has a lot of improv. And I think that also the whole principle behind improv is almost like a speech that you give, but you don't have it all written out. You only have the points, and then you elaborate. You have a certain skeleton, the intro and the body of the lecture, and then the summary. But you actually improvise it along the way with words too. There's been some incredible speakers that I know who they jazz it up, So I feel that it has to do with the ideology of the reform movement, of having new interpretations for Judaism, and the way and I think jazz people blend in really well into that ideology. So
My
just wanted-
Chazanut teacher at HUC, Chaim Feifel of blessed memory, used to call it Jewish soul music. And do you think that's why Jews and jazz sort of go together pretty well because of the improvisatory nature of it? And
I think they had an easier way, because you're talking about Eastern European people, right? Mainly doing the Chazanut thing. Not in North Africa, they had other types of Chazanut, and but Western classical music is more strict, is more according, you go by the book and you read. When the element of improv comes into play and you're trained to be Chazan, and you can in fact take those elements and you have a certain degree of freedom, of course it's what your teacher said is absolutely true, and then you can take it to all kinds of places.
it's beautiful.
Definitely a good thing to have. Yeah.
Great, Matan. Wow, what a joy to have you join us today. This was so cool. I couldn't have thought of a better guest, and it just sort of worked out. So I'm glad you were available. It's really terrific.
No place like Zoom. No place like
Zoom. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. Go out and buy Matan's album. He'd love that.
It's actually, you can download it for free.
Oh my gosh. How do you make money on any of this stuff? Musicians
We
don't
play
make money.
concerts.
Play
It's
concerts.
over.
That's it.
The CD is over, and
I know. It's Spotify. Yeah. All right. Joey, thank you for helping behind the scenes. Appreciate it. Be well. Matan, thank you. Lots of love.
Thank you so much.
Be well. Take care, everybody.